The strange signals came from beyond the Kuiper Belt. First, a series of pulses that made no sense to most of the scientists who detected them. Commander Lily Barnes floated in the observation module of the International Space Station watching Earth. Spin below her when the alert came through. She pushed herself across the module, grabbing handholds along the way. Her dark hair floated around her face as she reached the communications panel. The message was clear and terrifying. Something massive was approaching Earth. Something that should not be there. Lily called the rest of the crew. 6 people from different countries gathered around the observation window as she pointed to a faint light growing larger against the backdrop of stars. None of them spoke. They all knew what it meant. They were witnessing first contact. The enormous vessel entered Earth orbit silently despite its size. The alien ship was smooth and black, absorbing light rather than reflecting it. Smaller craft began to separate from the main vessel, descending toward major cities across the globe. Beijing, Moscow, London, New York, Delhi. All received visitors on Earth, panic mixed with wonder. People stood in streets pointing at the sky. Some ran, others prayed. A few prepared weapons. The governments called for calm while military forces mobilized. But the aliens made no aggressive moves. They simply landed and waited. The aliens called themselves the Vexari. Their bodies were tall and thin with gray skin that seemed to shimmer like oil on water. They had 4 arms and eyes that changed color based on their mood. Their leader addressed the United Nations, promising peace, friendship, and advancement. Dr. Olivia Hughes watched the broadcast from her laboratory at Stanford University. Something about the Vexari made her uncomfortable. They spoke perfect English, too perfect. Their movements seemed calculated. Their promises of medical breakthroughs and clean energy technology sounded wonderful, but their eyes never matched their words. When the Vexari offered to cure cancer, Olivia was invited to work with them. She accepted not because she believed them, but because she wanted to study them up close. Their laboratory was inside their ship, a gleaming space filled with technology beyond human understanding. The Vexari assigned to work with her was named Zith. Olivia noticed things. The way the Vexari spoke to each other when they thought no humans were listening. The strange rooms humans were never allowed to enter. The fact that the Vexari took blood samples from every human who entered their ship, but shared none of their own biology. She began keeping a private journal, hiding it from the Vexari cameras. The aliens had a different scent when they thought humans weren't watching. Their movements became more insect-like. Their eyes turned a deep red color that never appeared during public meetings. Late one night, Olivia stayed in the lab after others had left. She pretended to work while watching the Vexari. She overheard 2 of them discussing human processing facilities and neural harvesting. Her blood ran cold as she understood the truth. The Vexari had not come to help. They had come to feed. Olivia needed proof. She waited until the lab was empty, then accessed a Vexari communication terminal using codes she had memorized by watching them. She downloaded whatever she could to her tablet, hiding it under her lab coat. Her hands trembled as she walked past Vexari guards. They nodded at her, never suspecting what she carried. Captain Susan Reeves didn't believe in aliens until they landed. Now she commanded a small security force at the Vexari medical facility in Houston. She noticed how eager people were to trust these visitors. How quick governments had been to sign treaties. How easily humanity had accepted gifts without questioning the givers. Susan met Olivia when the scientist requested extra security for her lab. The 2 women recognized something in each. A shared suspicion. A willingness to question. Olivia showed Susan the downloaded files, transmissions between Vexari ships, plans for human farms, discussions of suitable hosts. Together they formed a small resistance. Susan recruited trusted soldiers and police officers. Olivia brought in fellow scientists. Together they established safe houses and communication networks. They worked quietly, gathering information and resources, preparing for whatever the Vexari truly planned. They had no idea how little time they had. 3 months after the Vexari arrival, Earth celebrated the new alliance. Billions watched as world leaders signed the Friendship Treaty. The Vexari distributed gifts. Small devices that improved cell phone reception, patches that cured common illnesses, water purifiers for developing nations. Everyone wanted Vexari technology. Everyone trusted the visitors. The devices activated simultaneously around the world, a signal pulse that human instruments failed to detect. Billions fell unconscious where they stood. Those who remained awake watched in horror as massive harvester ships descended from the sky. Machines built for collection, not diplomacy. Olivia was in her apartment with her research assistant Kate Porter when it happened. They had been examining a Vexari device trying to understand its technology. The signal went out, but they remained conscious. Protected by the special shielding Olivia had installed after her discovery, Kate looked out the window. As people collapsed in the street, Susan and her team were underground in an old bunker discussing evacuation plans. They felt nothing when the signal activated. Their communications went dead, but they were safe. The resistance had begun preparing. For something, though, they had expected war, not harvest. They had no idea what was happening above them. The Vexari moved quickly, collecting unconscious humans, loading them onto ships. Those still awake hid, watched, resisted small groups fighting against overwhelming technology. The invasion had been bloodless, the conquest efficient. Humanity had welcomed their enslavers with open arms. Olivia grabbed her research and emergency pack. She and Kate escaped through service tunnels beneath the city. They needed to reach Susan. They needed to understand why some humans remained awake. They needed to find a weakness in the Vexari plan before humanity disappeared into the harvesting ships. As night fell over a changed Earth, the resistance found itself suddenly fighting not for freedom, but for survival. Olivia clutched her tablet containing Vexari secrets. Susan gathered her soldiers preparing to move. Kate looked up at the ships, blotting out the stars. None of them knew what would happen next. They only knew they would not surrender. 1 week after the harvest began, Olivia and Kate crouched behind shipping containers at the Houston spaceport. They watched as unconscious humans were loaded onto Vexari transports. The aliens moved with mechanical precision, sorting humans by some unknown criteria. The stronger ones went to one ship, the children to another. The elderly were processed separately. Olivia studied them through binoculars, noting their behavior patterns. The Vexari seemed different now. They no longer pretended to be friendly. Their movements were jerky. Insect-like, their skin had a harder appearance, their eyes stayed permanently red. They spoke to humans who were still awake only to give orders. Kate checked their supplies. They had food for 3 days, weapons, borrowed from Susan, and most importantly, a device Olivia had created. It was designed to mimic Vexari communication signatures, allowing them limited access to alien systems. They planned to use it to infiltrate a processing ship. They needed to understand what happened to the harvested humans. They moved at night wearing stolen Vexari worker uniforms. The processing area was poorly guarded. The Vexari did not expect resistance. They had neutralized most of humanity with their signal. The few who remained awake were scattered. Disorganized Olivia and Kate walked directly into the loading bay of a mid-sized Vexari ship. Their uniforms and confident stride prevented questions. Inside the ship they discovered horror humans, suspended, in fluid-filled chambers, neural probes connected to their brains. Their life energy feeding the ship itself. The Vexari were not taking humans as slaves. They were using them as batteries, as processing units. Their neural energy harvested to power alien technology. Deeper in the ship, they found a data terminal. Olivia connected her device, downloading information while Kate stood guard. The files revealed the truth. The Vexari had conquered 17 other civilizations. Human brains were uniquely valuable. Their creativity, their emotional capacity, their neural patterns were more powerful than any species the Vexari had encountered before. An alarm sounded. Someone had discovered their presence. Kate pulled Olivia away from the terminal. They ran through corridors, trying to remember the path out. They turned a corner and froze. 2 Vexari guards blocked their escape. Kate raised her weapon, but the aliens were faster. They fell unconscious as stun weapons fired. Olivia woke in a small cell. Kate lay nearby, still unconscious. A Vexari stood watching them, its eyes shifting between red and yellow. It spoke in that too perfect English, asking why they remained awake when others slept. Olivia remained silent. The alien left, promising to return. With others. They would be studied, dissected, their immunity understood. Hours later, a different sound came from outside their cell. A human voice. Susan had tracked them using the Resistance communication network. She and 3 soldiers had infiltrated the ship. Susan opened the cell door, helping Kate to her feet. They had minutes to escape before the Vexari realized what was happening. As they moved through the ship, Olivia shared what she had learned. The Vexari were parasites. They consumed neural energy to survive. Their technology, their ships, even their bodies were constructed from harvested consciousness. They struggled with innovation, depending on other species for new ideas. Human creativity was like a drug to them. Susan led them to an exit point. Her team had secured a path to safety. They moved quickly through service tunnels, avoiding Vexari patrols. Outside, Resistance vehicles waited, engines running. They drove through empty streets, past abandoned buildings. The city belonged to the aliens now. At the Resistance base, Susan introduced them to others who had remained awake after the signal. A musician, a therapist, a kindergarten teacher, a poet. None of them had obvious connections. Olivia interviewed each person, running tests, analyzing data. Kate assisted, creating profiles, searching for patterns. What made them different? What made them immune? The pattern emerged slowly. People with high emotional intelligence remained conscious. Those who worked with emotions, who understood human feelings, who created art or music or helped others process their emotions. They stayed awake when others fell. Those with more analytical minds were more susceptible to the Vexari signal. Susan brought news from other Resistance cells. They existed worldwide, communicating via old radio technology. The Vexari considered too primitive to monitor. People fought back in small ways, sabotaging harvester ships, freeing captured humans, gathering information. But they were losing. The Vexari took thousands every day. Soon humanity would exist only as processing units. Olivia developed a theory. Human emotions disrupted Vexari neural patterns. The aliens had evolved to feed on thought, but emotions were chaotic, unpredictable. She tested her theory, playing music near captured Vexari technology. The devices malfunctioned when exposed to certain frequencies. Emotional responses generated interference. The very thing that made humans valuable also made them dangerous. Kate expanded the research, discovering that music especially created the strongest disruptions. The Vexari could not process certain sound patterns. They caused pain, confusion, even temporary paralysis in the aliens. A weapon began to take shape, a way to fight back, using humanity's most basic expressions. Susan received reports of a Vexari scout ship landing nearby. They needed to test their theory. They needed a ship. They needed a victory. Pilot Heather Kelly volunteered to lead the mission. She had flown everything, from fighter jets to cargo planes. She could learn to fly an alien craft. She had the plan formed quickly. Heather would lead a small team to capture the scout ship. Using Olivia's research, they would broadcast specific sound frequencies to disorient the Vexari guards. Then they would fly the ship to a nearby processing center and free as many humans as possible before the aliens could respond. The mission launched at dawn. 4 team members followed Heather toward the landing site, carrying portable speakers and weapons. They moved silently through abandoned suburbs, approaching the ship from different directions. The Vexari had grown complacent. They posted minimal security. They believed humans defeated. Heather gave the signal. The team activated. The speakers, Beethoven, blasted across the landing area. The effect was immediate. The Vexari guards clutched their heads, falling to the ground, writhing in pain. The team moved in, securing the ship. Heather explored the cockpit, understanding the controls. Through intuition and Olivia's research, they flew low across the landscape, avoiding Vexari sensors. The processing center appeared ahead. A converted sports stadium, now filled with harvesting equipment. They landed on the roof guards, disabled by their sonic weapon. They moved quickly through the facility, freeing hundreds of unconscious humans, loading them onto the ship. Alarms sounded. Vexari reinforcements arrived. The team fought their way back to the ship, Heather at the controls. They lifted off as weapons fire struck the hull. They escaped, carrying their freed captives back to the resistance base. The first victory belonged to humanity. Small but significant, in orbit around Earth, the Vexari command ship received the alert. A scout ship, stolen a processing center, raided. Hundreds of humans escaped. The ship commander summoned its elite hunters. It was time to eliminate the resistance. It was time to complete the harvest. Earth would fall. The humans would be processed. No species had ever escaped the Vexari. No species ever would. Zalthric stood before his prisoner. Susan showed no fear despite 15 days in captivity. The hunter had changed his movements more human, his speech patterns less mechanical. His eyes now permanently purple, a mixture of Vexari red and human blue. He questioned her differently now. Not about resistance tactics, but about human emotions, about music, about art, about why humans fought for each other. Susan gave minimal answers, but she watched, studied, learned. The hunter was absorbing more than neural tissue. He was absorbing humanity. The human minds he connected with changed him. She saw opportunity in this transformation. She began asking her own questions. Why do the Vexari harvest? Why do they not create their own art, their own emotions? Why must they take from others? The hunter had no answers. His species had evolved as parasites. They had always consumed the consciousness of others. They had no concept of creation, only absorption. When pressed, he admitted the Vexari were dying. Their conquered species eventually became predictable, useless. Humans remained chaotic, creative, unpredictable, valuable, at the resistance base. Olivia and Kate completed work on their virus. They called it the empathy virus, designed to overload Vexari systems. With human emotional patterns, it would spread through their network, corrupting their ability to process information. Their tests on captured technology showed promise, but to truly work, it needed to reach the control ship. The heart of the hive, Michelle, coordinated a rescue plan for Susan combined with a larger strategy. The data Kate had stolen revealed the location of the Vexari command ship, a massive organic vessel hiding behind Earth's moon. It controlled all harvest operations, all processing centers, all hunter activities. Their plan, Operation Trojan, would be the most ambitious resistance mission yet. Heather prepared a captured Vexari cruiser, larger than the scout ships they usually flew. The cruiser could hold a strike team and had enough range to reach lunar orbit. She modified its systems, installing human controls, removing Vexari tracking devices. They would appear as a returning hunter ship, complete with appropriate identification codes stolen from Zalthric's database. The strike team trained relentlessly. 8 resistance fighters specializing in different skills: combat technology, medicine, explosives. Each carried sonic weapons and communication devices. Kate created specialized equipment for uploading the virus. Olivia developed biological countermeasures against Vexari defenses. Michelle organized a worldwide diversionary attack. All processing centers would be hit simultaneously, drawing attention away from the command ship. The rescue team moved first. Olivia led 4 fighters to retrieve Susan. Their intelligence showed she was still held at the hunter's base. Security had increased, but they had mapped guard rotations and sensor patterns. They infiltrated during shift change, moving through maintenance tunnels. They reached the detention level, fighting through minimal resistance. The Vexari had grown overconfident. They found Susan's cell empty. She was gone, moved, or processed. In her place, they discovered a message scratched into the wall. The hunter's name and a sequence of numbers coordinates. Xalthrix had taken Susan to the command ship. The hunter and his prize were now aboard their primary target. The rescue and main mission had become one. Olivia and her team returned to base with this news. The plan changed. Susan was now aboard the command ship, either as prisoner or processing subject. The strike team would now have 2 objectives: upload the virus and rescue their leader. Heather adjusted their approach. Olivia modified their equipment. Kate recalibrated the virus. They would have one chance. The diversionary attacks began. Resistance cells worldwide struck processing centers. Sonic weapons disabled Vexari guards. Thousands of captive humans were freed. Transport ships destroyed communication. Relays sabotaged. The aliens responded as expected, dispatching ships to major sites. The command ship directed operations from lunar orbit. Its defenses focused outward toward Earth. Heather piloted the modified cruiser away from Earth, transmitting stolen identification codes. Their approach perfect, their timing exact. They docked with the command ship as hunters returned to report on resistance attacks. No alarms sounded, no questions asked. They were simply one more ship in the chaos of battle. The strike team moved through the command ship, discovering its true nature. Not technology, but biology. The vessel was alive. A massive organism with mechanical components. The corridors pulsed with fluids flowing through transparent tubes. The walls themselves seemed to breathe, the lights changing with the ship's moods. This was not a vessel, this was the original Vexari entity. All other Vexari were extensions of its consciousness. They fought through increasingly difficult defenses. 2 team members fell to automated security systems. 3 more separated to hold defensive positions. The remaining 3, Olivia, Kate, and Heather, continued toward the central neural chamber, the heart of the command ship, the source of the harvest signal, the core of the Vexari hive mind. As they approached the chamber, Kate prepared the virus. Olivia monitored Vexari communications. Heather led the way, weapon ready. The massive doors to the chamber opened, revealing a cathedral-like space, suspended. In the center was a glowing brain structure larger than a house. Neural energy pulsed through it. Thousands of connections spread outward, linking to ships around the planet below. The brain suspended in a fluid-filled tank was Susan, alive but connected to the neural network, her mind linked to the Vexari consciousness. Standing beside her was Kazalthrix. The hunter watched them enter, his expression unreadable, his eyes now almost entirely blue. Heather raised her weapon, but Kazalthrix made no move to stop them. Instead, he spoke, explaining the truth. The command ship was the original Vexari, an ancient entity that had evolved billions of years ago. It had survived by consuming other species, absorbing their consciousness, their knowledge, their creativity. But it was dying. Humanity was its last hope. Susan remained silent but conscious, her eyes communicating a message. Olivia understood. The connection worked both ways. Susan had access to Vexari knowledge. The hunter had been changed by human consciousness. The hive mind itself was vulnerable. Kate moved toward a neural interface, preparing to upload the virus. Kazalthrix finally moved, blocking their path. The hunter struggled, visibly torn between his nature and his new humanity. The human minds he had absorbed changed him, gave him individuality, emotions, but his connection to the hive mind remained. He fought his own internal war between Vexari and human consciousness. Susan broke free from her restraints, the connection weakened by the hive's focus on external attacks. She confronted Kazalthrix, reminding him of their conversations about art, music, emotions, all the things the Vexari took but never created. The hunter hesitated, his programming fighting his new understanding. The ship shuddered. External attacks breaching secondary defenses. The diversionary assault had escalated. The resistance worldwide, sensing the opportunity, pressed their advantage. Alarms sounded throughout the command ship. Kate saw her chance. She rushed to the neural interface connected. Her device began uploading the virus. Kazalthrix attacked Susan. Intercepted. The resistance leader and the hunter fought, a physical battle representing the larger war, the future of 2 species hanging in the balance. Susan used her military training. Kazalthrix, his enhanced strength. They were evenly matched, both understanding the other's moves, both fighting for different visions of survival. Olivia assisted Kate, protecting her as she completed the upload. Heather secured their escape route, fighting off automated defenses. The virus entered the Vexari network, spreading through neural pathways. The giant brain structure pulsed erratically, colors shifting wildly. The ship itself began to convulse. The hive mind experiencing human emotions for the first time. Fear, love, compassion, joy, anger, all at once. All overwhelming, Xalthrix fell to his knees, overwhelmed by conflicting directives. Susan stood over him, victor not by strength but by will. The hunter looked up, his eyes now entirely human. He warned them. The ship would destroy itself. The virus was too effective. The emotional overload too complete. They had minutes to escape. Kate completed the upload, ensuring the virus would spread to all Vexari ships. Olivia helped Susan, who was weakened by her neural connection. Heather led them back toward their ship, fighting through maintenance tunnels as primary corridors collapsed. The command ship began breaking apart, its organic structure rejecting the emotional virus. The ancient entity dying after billions of years. They reached their cruiser as the destruction accelerated. 4 survivors of the original 8. The ship breaking apart around them. Heather piloted them away from the command ship. As they gained distance, they witnessed the ancient Vexari entity tear itself apart, unable to process human emotions, unable to absorb human consciousness, unable to enslave humanity. The command ship exploded in silence, the vacuum of space carrying no sound, the blast visible from Earth as a new brief star. The destruction of the central consciousness created a cascading failure across all Vexari forces, the parasitic connection broken, the hive mind destroyed. Ships crashed or drifted powerless. Vexari troops collapsed. Some fought on through residual programming but without purpose, without direction. The cruiser returned to Earth. Susan weakened but alive. Kate exhausted but triumphant. Olivia already analyzing what they had learned. Heather piloting them home to a planet forever changed. The resistance had won. Humanity had survived. Not through superior technology or strength, but through emotion. Through 1 year into the occupation, Earth had changed. Abandoned cities stood silent. Harvester ships moved constantly across the sky. The Vexari had processed nearly half the human population. The remainder were either hidden with the resistance or still, unconscious, waiting their turn in massive storage facilities. The resistance had grown from isolated cells into an interconnected network. Safe zones existed in mountains, remote forests, and abandoned mine systems. Places the Vexari sensors could not easily penetrate. Humanity had adapted, learning to live underground or in camouflaged settlements. Michelle Grant had once taught 3rd grade. Now she ran the largest resistance identification network, a system designed to locate and rescue individuals. Before processing, her classroom skills translated perfectly to organizing rescue operations. She coordinated teams across continents using old ham radio equipment. The Vexari ignored these transmissions, considering them primitive. Olivia and Kate worked constantly, improving their sonic weapons. Each Vexari ship required a different frequency. Each alien responded to different emotional triggers. They captured equipment, modified it, studied it, repurposed it. The Resistance now had weapons that could disable Vexari technology long enough to rescue humans and escape. Susan commanded the military branch of the Resistance. Former soldiers, police officers, and civilians trained in combat. They raided processing centers, stole supplies, and protected the safe zones. They studied Vexari tactics, adapted and evolved. Their victory with the scout ship had inspired others. More ships had been captured, more humans freed. Heather led the pilot division, teaching others to fly Vexari craft. They used the ships for reconnaissance and rescue missions. They studied alien navigation systems and communication networks. They mapped Vexari movements, identified patterns, planned larger operations, but the aliens had responded to the growing resistance. The Vexari High Command dispatched elite hunters to Earth, specialists in tracking and eliminating threats. The most feared among them was Xalthrix, a hunter who had eliminated resistance on 7 other conquered worlds. His methods were brutal, efficient, and personal. He did not simply kill. He studied his prey first. Learning their weaknesses, Xalthrix arrived on a specialized ship designed for hunting. His first action was to capture and dissect resistance members, studying their immunity to the harvest signal. He discovered what Olivia had already learned. Their emotional capacity protected them. He began to develop countermeasures. Heather led a mission to rescue humans from a processing center in what was once Chicago. Her team included 6 resistance fighters and 2 captured scout ships. They approached under cover of a storm using cloud cover to mask their approach. Their intelligence indicated minimal security. Their sonic weapons were calibrated for maximum effect. They did not. No Xalthrix waited for them. The hunter had anticipated their attack, studied their tactics. He allowed them to land before springing his trap. As Heather and her team entered the facility, Vexari guards with modified helmets ambushed them. The helmets protected against sonic weapons. The team was surrounded. 3 fighters fell immediately, stunned by Vexari weapons. Heather ordered retreat. 2 more went down as they ran for the ships. Only Heather and 1 team member escaped, lifting off. As weapons fire damaged their engines, they limped away, barely making it back to base. The hunter had outmaneuvered them. The resistance had lost its first major battle. Susan called an emergency meeting. The leaders gathered in their underground base. Olivia reported her findings on the captured Vexari helmets. They contained human neural tissue. The aliens were adapting using harvested humans to protect themselves against human weapons. Kate suggested modifications to their sonic devices. The frequencies needed to change. Michelle brought news from her network. The Vexari ships moved in new patterns, concentrating around certain areas. They seemed to be searching methodically for something. The hunter led these searches, focusing on regions where resistance activity had been reported. They were being hunted scientifically. Olivia proposed a desperate plan. Capture the hunter. Study him. Understand how he tracked them. She believed his ship would contain valuable intelligence. They needed that information to survive. The mission was approved despite the risks. Susan would lead personally. They would use Heather's flying skills, Kate's technical expertise, and Olivia's knowledge of Vexari biology. They tracked the hunter for weeks, studying his movements, identifying patterns. He always returned to the same base, a former military facility now converted for Vexari use. The security was intense but not impossible. The plan formed. Heather would create a diversion, drawing away aerial defenses. Susan would lead a small team inside, while Kate accessed the hunter ship computer systems. The operation began at midnight. Heather flew dangerously close to Vexari sensors, drawing pursuit ships away from the base. Susan led her team through drainage, tunnels beneath the facility. They emerged inside the perimeter. Kate moved toward the hunter ship while Susan and 3 soldiers headed for the command center. Inside the facility, they discovered horror. Humans connected to machines, their minds being studied, their emotions cataloged. The Vexari were trying to understand human immunity. They were experimenting on resistant humans, trying to break their protection. Susan photographed everything. They needed this evidence. They needed to show others what they faced. The alarm sounded. Their presence discovered. Susan ordered Kate to complete her mission. Download the data from the hunter's ship. She and her team would provide cover. They fought through corridors using sonic weapons against standard Vexari guards. Their modified frequencies worked, disorienting the aliens long enough to advance. Kate reached the ship, connected her device to its systems. The download began. Thousands of files transferred. Tactical data maps, coordinates, communication protocols. The intelligence they desperately needed. A shadow fell across the ship entrance. Xalthrix stood watching her, his eyes shifting between red and a strange new color, purple. The hunter moved with impossible speed. Kate barely activated her sonic weapon. The frequencies that disabled other Vexari had minimal effect on Xalthrix. He staggered but continued advancing. Kate called for help as she backed away. The download incomplete. The hunter raised his weapon. Susan appeared, firing her weapon at maximum intensity. Xalthrix turned, focusing on this new threat. Kate grabbed her device, now containing vital Vexari data. She ran, following Susan's order to escape with the intelligence. The hunter fired. Susan fell. The resistance leader captured by the very prey she sought. Kate reached Heather, the pilot providing extraction. Their ship lifted off under heavy fire, the mission both success and failure. They had the data, but lost Susan. The resistance had suffered a devastating blow, their leader now in enemy hands, their security compromised, their future uncertain. At the safe zone, Michelle coordinated emergency evacuation procedures. They could not stay. Their location might be compromised. Olivia and Kate analyzed the downloaded data. The Vexari fleet information, command structures, patrol routes. But most important, they found evidence of a central control vessel, a ship larger than all others, the source of the harvest signal. The heart of the Vexari invasion. The data revealed something else. The Vexari were not simply conquering Earth, they were desperate. Their species was dying, their ability to innovate fading. They needed human creativity to survive. They had conquered 17 worlds before Earth, each species consumed, their patterns absorbed then discarded as they became predictable. Humanity was special, more creative, more emotional, more valuable. As resistance cells relocated, as plans formed, as hope dimmed, Susan faced Xalthrix. The hunter studied her. She studied him. Something was different about this Vexari. His eyes contained flecks of human color, his movements less insect-like, more fluid. He had integrated human neural tissue not just as protection, but as enhancement. He was becoming a hybrid. And in that realization, Susan found hope. Xalthrix questioned Susan about resistance capabilities, locations, plans. She revealed nothing, knowing. Each piece of information meant more deaths. The hunter used no physical torture, only psychological pressure, constant, questioning, sleep deprivation. Susan resisted, drawing on her military training. But as days passed, she noticed something. The hunter was changing. His questions shifting from tactical to philosophical. Why do humans resist? Why do they help each other? Why do they create art in the new resistance base hidden deep in mountain caverns? Michelle identified a pattern in Vexari ship movements, evidence of coordination centered on specific orbital positions. A schedule, a vulnerability. Kate developed a new weapon. A virus designed to infiltrate Vexari systems based on human emotional algorithms, unpredictable, chaotic, creative. Everything the Vexari could not understand. Olivia prepared a rescue mission for Susan. They could not leave her to the hunter's experiments. They could not risk what the Vexari might learn from her. Heather would pilot, Kate would deploy technical countermeasures, Olivia would lead the ground team. They had one advantage. The hunter would not expect them to return, so soon as they prepared for the mission, the resistance faced their darkest hour. Their leader captured, their safe zones compromised, their enemy adapting. But they had discovered the Vexari central control ship. They had developed a weapon that might work against it. They had found the heart of the invasion, now they needed to strike it. 6 months after the destruction of the Vexari command ship, Earth began to heal. The unconscious humans awakened slowly, their minds returning as the harvest signal faded. Cities remained damaged, landscapes altered, populations reduced, but humanity survived, resilient, adaptive, determined to rebuild. Susan led the recovery efforts, coordinating between reformed governments and resistance groups. Her experience, her leadership, her understanding of both human and Vexari minds made her essential to rebuilding. She worked tirelessly despite the nightmares that came from her neural connection to the hive mind. She had seen the ancient entity from within, understood its hunger, its desperation, its fear. Olivia studied Vexari remains, their technology, their biology. The secrets of 17 conquered civilizations preserved in their database. She discovered evidence that the Vexari had visited Earth before ancient drawings, cave paintings, myths of mind-stealing creatures. All suggested previous encounters. Humanity had fought them before, had driven them away. Had forgotten, Kate developed new technologies based on captured Vexari systems. Communications devices free from traditional limitations. Power sources that drew energy from natural, human electrical fields, medical treatments that accelerated healing. The aliens had taken much from humanity, but left behind the tools for advancement. Heather trained pilots to fly remaining Vexari ships. They established an orbital defense network, monitoring systems watching for any sign of other alien vessels. The universe suddenly seemed more dangerous, more crowded. Humanity would not be caught unprepared again. Michelle organized education centers teaching children and adults about their new reality. The stars no longer represented wonder alone, but potential threat. Communities formed around shared experience. The trauma of occupation, the joy of liberation, the uncertainty of a universe with other intelligent life. Some hostile, some perhaps friendly. The most unexpected development came from those who had been partially processed, survivors of Vexari neural connections. They displayed unusual abilities, enhanced intuition, technological understanding, creativity beyond normal human limits. The neural harvesting incomplete had changed them. They were still human, still individual, but different. Their minds expanded by the alien connection. These changed humans faced fear, suspicion, even hatred from some. They had absorbed aspects of Vexari consciousness. They understood the enemy in ways others could not. Some advocated destroying all alien technology, abandoning the stars, returning to a simpler existence. Others saw opportunity, a chance to advance, to protect Earth, to ensure no species ever threatened humanity again. Susan protected these changed humans, establishing special schools where they could develop their abilities safely. She remembered Kazalthrix, the hunter changed by human consciousness, the possibility of growth, of evolution, of transformation. She believed these changed humans represented not a threat, but the next step in human development. Minds expanded by contact with the stars. Olivia made another discovery: dormant Vexari communication beacons at the edge of the solar system. They had been monitoring Earth for centuries, waiting for humanity to advance enough to be valuable. Their technology still functioned, could still send messages to distant stars, could still receive them. The beacons represented both danger and opportunity, a way to warn others of the Vexari threat, a way to announce humanity's presence to the cosmos. The resistance leaders now. Earth leaders debated the beacons. Susan wanted to use them to seek other species who had fought, the Vexari. Kate argued for caution, for silence, for time to prepare Olivia. Advocated research understanding the signals before sending any. Michelle suggested education, preparing humanity for the possibility of other contact. Heather supported exploration, taking human ships beyond the solar system, finding others before they found Earth. The debate continued for months as recovery progressed, as cities rebuilt, as humanity healed. Ultimately, they decided together. Earth would not hide. Earth would not cower. Humanity would reach out to the stars. Not in fear, but in strength. Earth nations united, creating a global defense and exploration initiative. Susan became its first commander. Their mission threefold: protect Earth, explore space, find and liberate any remaining species enslaved by Vexari technology. The ancient parasite was dead, but its technology remained on 17 conquered worlds. Those civilizations might still be saved. Olivia and her team adapted Vexari faster than light technology, creating the first human interstellar drive. They built it into a ship constructed from both human and alien components, a vessel designed for both diplomacy and defense. They named it Defiance, both a statement of what humanity had done and a promise of what humanity would do. Heather was selected to command Defiance. Her crew included Kate as science officer, a team of changed humans whose abilities would help navigate alien environments. Former resistance fighters, now explorers. Earth did not send warriors alone, but scientists, artists, musicians, diplomats. The full spectrum of humanity represented in a single ship. The day of launch arrived. Defiance rested on its pad, gleaming in the morning sun. Crowds gathered to witness humanity's first true step to the stars. Susan addressed them, speaking of loss, of victory, of hope. She reminded them that humanity had faced extinction and chosen a different path. Not surrender, not enslavement, but defiance. Heather led her crew aboard, each member carrying memories of occupation, each dedicated to ensuring no other species faced what Earth had endured. The ship's engines activated, powerful but controlled. The technology that had nearly destroyed humanity, now controlled by human hands. The vessel rose slowly at first, then with gathering speed, breaking through clouds, through atmosphere, through the boundaries that had once defined human existence of the ground. Susan watched the ship disappear, becoming one more light among countless stars. She remembered her captivity, the questions she had asked Xaltrix. Why do the Vexari harvest? Why do they not create? Why must they take from others? The hunter had no answers. His species had always consumed, had never considered another way. Humanity had other plans. Humanity would find another way. Humanity would explore, create, build, connect. Not as conquerors, not as harvesters, but as equals among the stars. The ship disappeared from view, its mission just beginning. Earth healing behind it. Unknown, civilizations waiting ahead. The Vexari had tried to enslave humans, but humanity had chosen a different destiny. Aboard Defiance, Heather stood on the bridge watching Earth shrink behind them, Kate beside her monitoring the new engines. Their course set toward the nearest Vexari-conquered world. A planet called Lyrix, according to alien records, its people suspended in neural processing for over a century. The crew prepared for their first mission, humanity bringing liberation instead of enslavement, connection instead of consumption, creation instead of destruction. The stars spread before them, endless possibilities, unknown civilizations, potential friends, potential enemies, the universe suddenly accessible, the future uncertain, but faced with determination. Earth grew smaller behind them. The mission of Defiance grew larger before them. Humanity had survived the Vexari. Humanity would help others survive as well. The ship accelerated toward distant stars, carrying the most powerful force in the universe, not technology, not weapons, but human creativity, human compassion, human defiance. The ancient Vexari had been correct about one thing. Humans were different. Their emotions, their creativity, their connections to each other made them unpredictable, chaotic, resilient. These same qualities that had made them valuable as neural batteries now made them dangerous as galactic neighbors. The Vexari had tried to enslave humans, but humanity had made other plans, and now the stars themselves would face those plans, would know human determination, would experience human compassion. As Defiance jumped to faster than light speed, disappearing from the solar system, Susan whispered a promise to the stars, to the 17 enslaved worlds, to any listening ears in the vast darkness. Humanity was coming, not to conquer, not to harvest, but to liberate, to connect, to create, to defy. The Vexari had failed, their ancient hunger extinguished, their parasitic existence ended. Humanity survived. Humanity, advanced humanity, looked to the stars not with fear but with purpose. The journey had just begun.